So this is our June 2nd, 2021 regular select board meeting, and we will call the meeting to order at 5:30. Karen, do you have any adjustments to the agenda?
We might have to adjust. I know Bara's on, there she is right there. So she's here.
We can juggle stuff a little bit if there's a reason to, that's okay.
Okay, and I'm thinking maybe we'll move Tom up.
I was just gonna say, is Tom, he wasn't on a minute ago, but whenever he comes, we can just put him in. We can rearrange the schedule.
Yeah, I might put him underneath Putney Historical Society.
Okay, sounds good. All right, approval of minutes, May 19th and May 27th. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from May 19th and May 27th, 2021.
Then I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from May 19th and May 27th. If there's, there was actually, hang on one sec. There was one thing. Yeah. In the end of the first paragraph on the 27th, it just says a 3 warranty will go with the work. So
A
3-year warranty. I felt like there was one other thing, but nothing. It was not important. All right. So if there's no further discussion, then we will vote on approval of the minutes from May 19th and 27th. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous, Alyssa. All right, and then warrants to treasurer.
I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the warrants to the treasurer upon and execute them upon completion of review. So Karen, you want to go ahead and review?
Sure. Payroll warrant dated June 4th, 2021 in the amount of $18,973.15. This is a standard payroll.
I don't see any new names.
No new names.
All right, and AP warrant.
Accounts payable dated May 22nd through June 4th, 2021 in the amount of $50,439.87. We do have in there the deposit for the contractor for the pool.
Yeah, I saw that.
$17,400. And the only other one, consolidated communications, it's $3,718, and that is because the brand new phones are in that bill.
Okay.
The new town phones.
Yes, so, yes.
A whole new system?
Yeah,
Yes.
tell us about that.
So the new phones are in town hall and at the fire station. So they are fiber because we have fiber to the building, and no longer, the copper phones would not work with the new fiber lines. So we had in the budget $4,500 for new telephones. And if you give me a second, I can tell you the equipment ended up being $2,130. That is phones and modems, anything associated with that equipment.
And we purchased those from Consolidated.
That is correct.
Okay.
So the difference between it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, is there there must be a software component to that with the voicemail and other things. Are you happy with it?
Yes, so our voicemail goes directly to our email now.
Nice.
So everything can be tracked that way. We have caller ID on our phones. We can transfer calls. We can do three-way teleconferencing. And that's all stuff that we weren't ever able to do before.
Nice.
You leapt right into the 20th century, almost the 21st.
Yes.
So does it when you get a voicemail, does it translate and send you an email of it? Is that how that works, or
Yes.
it
Yeah.
transcribes? No kidding. Wow, cool.
How good is it?
It's not word for word, but
Right.
it's pretty close. And the message is also on our telephone.
Yeah.
So we can always, we have it in two places.
I've had some interesting transcriptions happen on my Xfinity phone that made no sense. They were funny, but they made no sense.
Well, Karen, the bill's for $37.18 and the equipment was $21.30. So that's a difference of $1,500 and change. And how much of that is our monthly charge, and what's the difference for? Is
So
it
the new phone and internet is $1,111. So, and the old phone and internet was $831.
For what time period?
That was just prior to changing over. So
Right.
the old,
No, I know, but that's a monthly expense you're talking about?
yes. So there's an increase of $271. And with that changeover too, so we have a dedicated 20 up and 20 down fiber line at this point, which we didn't have before. So we didn't have no dedicated lines for town hall or the fire department. So the other thing too is we can connect directly with the fire department too, which was something that we could never do prior either. The other good thing about Consolidated, I'll tell the board right now, and the plan was when we went into this with fiber, is that we can connect eventually the pool and the highway garage all on the same system. And the library has First Light. So, and they get a grant from the library. So I don't think we're going to bring them on board unless something happens.
So
if they lost money, if they lost the grant money, then we could consider it and we would all be connected.
Alyssa, it looked like you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, that bill was more than 1 month. It's
Right.
it's like 1 month plus however many weeks that we, you know, what I mean? Prorated, yeah.
Because it didn't add up and I wondered why. Thank you for that. Yep.
Okay. Fairman? Yes, Mr. Fairman.
Just to clarify, Putney Public Library is on a network called Vermont Fiber Connect, which connects to many libraries around the state. I'm not sure whether all, but certainly many of them. So they may not wish to change because of the advantages of direct connection to other libraries.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, so why? Just because I don't remember seeing it before. New York Life Insurance.
Yeah, that's our life insurance for all the employees.
It is. Okay, so that's separate from passive.
Right, right.
I wasn't remembering that. Okay, sounds good. All right, so it's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants as presented upon completion of review. We've now reviewed. So unless there's any further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. Let's see. Next would be public comment on items not on the agenda. I don't know whether Meg wanted to come on now. So I only sort of think of you as public in this context, Meg, but we'll allow it nonetheless. So go ahead.
Is that because if I'm speaking as town moderator, I'm not really public? Is that?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, I just wanted to, and thank you for giving me this brief little moment here. March 2022 is when town meeting will occur again. And it could be a very exciting time. I'd love to break all records in terms of a number of participants. So I wanted to float the idea with you all, and that is to think about not a standing committee necessarily. I think this is a very targeted group of people to see about whether Putney should consider moving to a Saturday. Would we get more people? And so what I'm suggesting right now is just to get your all sense of who you think I should be contacting. What could I do? We have fabulous things happening in Putney with the meals provided, daycare provided. So we're doing a lot of things right. But boy, would I love to also ideally have groups meeting ahead of time, going over Robert's rules, considering what's contentious on the warrants. How can we get more information so people can make good decisions? So I see this very much as a task force with the effort to increase people's knowledge about local decision making.
Hi, Bara. Bara, you got something to add?
Yeah. Hi, Meg. Yeah, I'm glad that you're talking about this. After the last town meeting, I talked with my neighbors a little bit, and I would like to talk, so maybe I'll be a part of your group, Meg, I don't know, but I would like to talk about the possibility and the logistics of having the in-person part happen like a month before the vote has to happen, so that there can be discussion, there can be changes if needed, and then the ballot can be created and people can come and vote Australian ballot. Because what I've heard is people don't feel comfortable saying nay in public when they don't agree with something. And I feel strongly that they should be able to vote comfortably. So that's a thought that I have that I'm willing to, explore with people.
Great.
Eileen.
So New Hampshire has a similar, it's called SB2. And what they do is they split some of these towns, like they're SB2 towns, and they split up the discussion, and then the vote happens via Australian ballot. The advantage to their system is that you can amend things at the meeting.
Yes.
I don't know if we have that kind of discretion in Vermont, but it would be worth looking into.
Well, we can amend things at a town meeting. You're talking about if we had a preliminary one, we could amend it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
we have to explore the statutory aspects of it. The other thing, and I don't know, I mean, it's sort of the same topic, but a little bit different, is the virtual component. I think we should absolutely be doing a virtual component from here on out, but what's the model for that? And is that, I mean, as you probably all know, we always have an informational meeting before town meeting. But the idea of voting everything by Australian, I'm not opposed to it. I don't know whether, I don't know, the statutes, it would be worth having, consulting with VLCT or somebody. Right. And I'm also guessing, actually, Mike Merwicki probably would be up to date on, I'm guessing that the legislature, if they haven't already, are going to be looking at how to mix virtual, because we were going sort of day by day on the Secretary of State's recommendations for how we were going to do that in the last round. and maybe we'll know a lot more further in advance next time, but I don't know.
So
Yeah,
I want to say, I'd just like to mention that I think it's a great idea. I think it's clear participation was up. I think a big part of that was Australian ballot, and I think I'm all for getting more people involved. So it's just you're preaching to the choir here. I think we're just good.
great.
Just to clarify, I'm getting
Feedback, David?
It's a fugue.
Karen's,
I don't think it's coming. That now it seems better.
okay.
Just to be clear, you're right. Voting participation was up, David, but we had 96 participants in the meeting portion of it when we typically have 250 to 300. So, the exploration of a Saturday, and I'm definitely not opposed to it. We have explored it before, as far as I can remember, and this is just my memory, so fallible, definitely. It doesn't make as much of a difference as one would assume. It seems what I remember is that it makes a big difference in some towns, and in some towns it seems to make little or no difference, or even the opposite. So, and I'm not opposed to the idea at all, but I think checking with those who might know more. Bara.
I'm happy to talk, Meg. It sounded like you were, wanted to have a group to discuss this more and investigate, and I'm happy to be a part of that. I'll just add two pieces. One, that I think it'll take a while if we do switch to a Saturday. It might take a while before that actually shows whether it's going to have an effect or not, because people will get used to it and sort of get used to the idea and then maybe change their behavior. But then the other piece I just wanted to add publicly is that when I talked with my neighbors and suggested that we have it all on Australian ballot, they said very clearly, well, they really like the engaged part of town meeting where you discuss and you amend. And that's why I wanted to say, well, let's look into this, Meg. Can we have that part first so that if there are any amendments, it's amended before the official ballot is printed, because we don't want to print a ballot and then have to amend it and print it again, right? So I'm happy to be involved.
Great.
Yeah, that's good point. Again, we'd have to go to the Secretary of State's office to see. I'm not sure how that would work with sort of printing an official ballot. We'd have to print an official ballot in order to have a meeting about it, I would think. So then the amendments, I'm not sure, but that's detail stuff. But yeah, no, I think this is a great idea. Meg, I don't know whether you want to propose a group that you would like to ask to do this, and I don't even know whether you were proposing that you be part of that group, but it would be great if you were willing and interested.
What I was anticipating is maybe could this group, without a name quite yet, perhaps, or I don't know if it's going to be the town meeting task force or something of that sort, could we be on the select board's first meeting in July? And by then I will have, I'd love to talk to you, Bara. We can think about some other people who might want to do. I've been in touch with other town moderators because after last March, a lot of things are now on the table. People got a different way to go about this. Putney was probably the most successful in terms of participation in that information session from talking to other town moderators. So I think VLCT and the Secretary of State are trying to figure this all out going forward. So it'd be nice to be part of that decision on the Putney level and on the state level.
Sounds good. Karen.
So Lisa has a question too. Can I recommend that the town clerk be involved too with this committee?
Oh, good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on, I think Lisa Papazi, did you have a question, Lisa?
Well, I did. I wanted to say that I know that Anita repeatedly said when we brought this up that they tried it, the Saturday thing, having town meeting, and that it made no difference. But I think, you know, I think you're right. It may take time to do that, and certainly times have changed, and maybe that we have the opportunity through social media or whatever however we get the message out to people, to try to poll people on, would a Saturday make a difference? Would an evening make a difference? But again, I do think the informational meeting is different than actually being able to change articles from the floor, because then you're back in the same boat of not everyone can attend that meeting, and then there's a difference of who can participate, it seems.
Yeah, I mean,
My only comment, but
yeah, no, that makes sense. No, and I agree. Anita did used to say that, but we did compile some information sometime about towns that had done it. And again, my recollection is it was surprising that it didn't seem, but I do think, you know, I mean, people's willingness to, or ability to sit for a virtual meeting on a Saturday is going to be greater, you know, even if they wouldn't necessarily show up at an in-person meeting, even if we were having it, I think we would be more likely to get people coming virtually on a Saturday than we would on a Tuesday. But I don't know. And then, you know, I mean, yeah, this is all stuff that this group can figure out, fortunately.
Right. Yeah, those are details.
David.
I had a discussion.
No, you're good.
Okay. I had a discussion with Doug Harlow about this before last town meeting, because Doug has been involved with town business for a long time, and he said they'd compiled, I think this is what you're talking about, Josh, they'd compiled some numbers in Putney about whether or not it had made any difference, and he said it made surprisingly little difference, but I think that's no reason to not try it again anyway. So, and Doug might be a good person to talk to about getting that information. So
It's probably not what, because he was quite a few. I mean, we've had that discussion at the select board level in my time, so they probably had it at the select board level in his time as well.
Right.
But yeah, no, and I think the virtual component is a big question mark that is definitely going to add and be important, and how to optimize it, I don't know.
Right.
Eileen.
I think also moving it to a Saturday, you may not get as many people, or you may get the same number of people, but you may get a different demographic, which would be interesting to see.
Yeah. Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, first, I would caution once again against referencing New Hampshire when we're talking about our legal arrangements, because it is a different state. I also have lived in New Hampshire, and I'm familiar with how they do town meeting over there. And it of course, is under the New Hampshire legislature, not under the Vermont legislature. Now, further, the town meeting being the first Tuesday in March is per Vermont statute, when the polls shall be open. Now, the statute does permit beginning the town meeting as early as the Saturday preceding the first Tuesday in March. But there is no possibility of saying, let us have a meeting before sometime earlier than that, where we make a bunch of decisions. That would be a special town meeting. And it would not, it is possible to call a special town meeting, but not to deal with the matters that are mandated to be dealt with at an annual meeting.
It's a good point. I mean, but so maybe, I don't know. Again, we should form. I would. It's been suggested to me that task force is not great language for these kinds of things. So maybe a working group, Meg. But maybe form a working group to look at exactly this stuff, and maybe it means having the in-person meeting on Saturday and the voting on that following Tuesday. And it's sort of pseudo continuous. I don't know, but Lisa.
Just one more thought is that the school might actually have some good advice about, evenings or weekends are parents, for example, more likely to show up to an event with kids. They might have good advice about which is better for a lot of those folks.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
David.
One of the things that was most important to me this year was to talk to as many people as I could talk to in my circle and encourage them to join the virtual town meeting, informational meeting this year. And although not as many of them as joined as I would have liked, I know that a majority of the people I talked to voted, and many of them had not voted for years. And so I think a huge component of this is all of us connecting with our groups of people the best we can and encouraging everybody to participate. So, yep.
Great.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Meg. That was Meg Mott from the public.
Citizen.
Yes. Okay, so next, do we have any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Doesn't sound like it. So first on our list of select board items is illegal dumping in Putney, and Bara is going to speak to that. She wrote a letter to us about something she had sort of witnessed and worked on. But also, Bara, I think you were made aware and you may have reviewed, but just for others, we did have a discussion about this at our last meeting, and it was focused largely, I think the topic came up by the concern about free items being put out sort of on the side of the road, and what the gray area is between free items and trash being illegally dumped. We talked about, the topic of the base of Putney Mountain is irregular, and then also, there are often places, well, bottom of Johnson's Curve, but that's Dummerston. But, there are a variety of places where the Westminster West Putney turnaround line up there are places where people consistently both dump stuff and leave quote unquote free things, which if they aren't trash already often become trash. So we did have that conversation, but Bara, if you want to go ahead and add what you would like to.
Yeah, and I did review the video for that section of your last meeting. So I just to bring up that there were also the dumping sites on Sand Hill, and then I don't remember the other one, West Road, was it?
Yeah.
So for me, what I, just so people that didn't get the letter, I walk my dogs on River Road, and there's a spot where the road is close to the tracks, which is close to the river. And there was a huge amount of household garbage there. It could have been from a party, but I'm not sure. And it was three contractor bags full of garbage, and I picked it up and brought it up. And it took about an hour to do it. And as I was doing it, I was thinking, well, why would someone do this? And of course, there are all kinds of reasons why somebody would dump. But one of the reasons that came to my mind as a possibility is that there may be people who can't afford to legally dispose of their trash if they're out of work, or if they are not making as much as they used to. So I've been trying to think more holistically, rather than how do we prevent a dump, or how do we have this sign. I mean, I think it's good to put signs, but we have this sign that say don't dump here. But then if a person doesn't have a way of dumping, that's just going to move them to another place that maybe doesn't have a sign. And so I don't have an answer to this, but I had a couple of thoughts that I wanted to raise, and I know it's going to be an ongoing discussion. But the first thought I had was is there a way for us to let people know if they can't afford it right now? Is there a way for me to organize donations to pay for this interim time where people can, I'm just putting it out there. I have not thought of it, and this is not complete, but is there a way for me to collect that trash and deal with it and get donations to pay for the dumping of it? the other thing was that I talked to Bruce, my husband, and he said that Westminster has curbside pickup that's paid for through taxes, which would be a huge change for us, but it's something that I wanted to bring up. And I talked to Russ, the town manager, and the system is fairly intricate and it seems like it works fairly well. They do still have some illegal dumping, but it's not huge. And I don't even know if we need that, but I also caught the tail end of something that you guys were discussing in the last meeting about Putney expanding and more people moving in, and that things are going to be expanding. So we may need to be changing some of our systems anyway. So that's the information I have. I guess I wanted to bring the piece in of trying to I have a lot of judgment about dumping, but I also wanted to bring in the piece of having some compassion as well about that there may be people who are doing this and not necessarily wanting to do it, but feeling like they don't have any other way right now. So that's it.
David, go ahead.
Question. I know that there are people out there who will come and take your stuff. If you have things that you still think have value, but you have no way of getting rid of them, you can make a phone call and they'll come and load their van up and take it away for you. I don't know if there's anybody that will do that for trash for you or not, but it's a thought that crosses my mind. I know my aunt and uncle were moved into assisted living, and a man and his son came with their van and filled their van 3 times with stuff and took it away because we didn't have a means to deal with it. And some of it was valuable, and I'm sure they will resell, but a lot of it didn't look like it had any value to me. And so I don't know if those kind of things are out there. If they are, is there a way we can put that out there so people can know that? That's the thought that crosses my mind.
Eileen, I know you want to, I just want to, a couple things. One, we explored curbside just a few years ago. Karen, I think that was in your first year, wasn't it? We really went through it pretty thoroughly.
Yes.
It's an expensive prospect, and it's not, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. The other thing we have considered is the possibility of doing a tipping station here in town. Both of those would improve access, but they both would also increase cost more than likely. I mean, picking up definitely would, but that might be, you know, we can revisit it, but we did this homework quite thoroughly a few years ago. So Bara, if you want to see that information, that's good. The other thing I would just recommend is maybe touching base with Dan Toomey, who's our representative to the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District, because they may have support systems, and I don't know what they are. But you know, there are a bunch of models, and maybe, you know, if we do continue to see the trend of expanding, it might be worth revisiting the idea of doing curbside or having a tipping station. Eileen wanted to say something, and then Karen. Eileen.
Yeah, so I think Bara was more talking about household trash, the stuff that we
Right.
that we accumulate every single day. So there, as opposed to the stuff that gets thrown on the side and you know, fee sign. The other point I wanted to make, and I wasn't involved in the discussion of curbside, but if it's like we pay for somebody to pick our trash up, that's basically a user fee. And if the math worked out so that it was less for our taxes, you know, for our taxes to go up, then it costs us to have it picked up, then it might be worth it. The other piece to that is that you know, we have our trash picked up, but there are some things that they will not pick up. And so we have to find a way to get those things to the dump. And the reality is that it's still sitting out in my driveway because I haven't had the chance to do it. So I can see where if they had some, I don't know what the answer is either, but there's definitely an issue with making everyone fend for themselves, so to speak.
Yeah, No, I agree, but I think that as you know, Eileen, if you have your trash picked up, it's pretty expensive. And you're right, it probably would be cheaper if we had curbside pickup for you, but for those who can't afford that, it's an additional burden. And I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I looked into it a couple of years ago for me, and it was $50 a month, I think, roughly, something like that, to have pickup done. Well, I can go to the dump, and for $10 a month, I can take my trash to the dump, or not even, whatever it ends up being. So, if you're
But only
adding,
if you have the means to do that, though. If you don't have a car, you don't have a way to get your trash there, you can't get there when they're open.
right,
The burden.
yes, and I totally agree, and I totally understand that. But it's also that burden of putting that on. Basically, then you're mandating that people pay a tax in order to have their trash picked up when they might be able to save money by not having that. And again, I'm not arguing it either way. I'm just, there's a lot of different aspects to it, unfortunately. But David, I think you wanted to say something.
No, I'm good. Go ahead, Barry.
Bara?
Well, Karen, did you want to say something first?
Sure. So, Bara, I can work with you and give you information what I've compiled. And I met with Dan Toomey, Bob Spencer down at the town garage like 5 months ago. And we do have a program in Putney. So Wyndham Solid Waste Management District is our program. And right now it doesn't cost us, I was going to say it doesn't cost us anything, but it costs us the assessment every year that's in the budget. So curbside pickup in Westminster is about $200,000 a year. And what that does not include is your commercial or your multifamily homes. Okay, so those people still have to get a private contractor and get a dumpster. Okay, and I understand, people's ability to, they don't have a means, but if they're dumping garbage anywhere they want, obviously they've got wheels. So it's going to cost money either way if you look at the curbside, or if we look at like a tipping station like Josh talked about, which was discussed when Cynthia was here, to have it down at the town garage. So that's going to cost money. And right now I don't have a dollar amount for that. And that's going to raise the taxes too, because then you have to employ more people, which is a good thing. But, if we were able to make money off, say, the recycling, that might be okay. But we kind of have to balance it and get some more feedback from the community. But I do hear everybody about the trash.
And I just two other points. Obviously, I'm not going to advocate for any particular thing right now. I don't know enough about it. I did talk to Russ and I asked him, this is just his opinion, this whole issue of when people have to pay private contractors to come pick up their trash, and comparing that to the price of if you were paying it through taxes. And he said he believed it was much lower because it's aggregated, right? And that makes sense. And to speak to your point, Josh, about, people who can do it without paying taxes, like we do that. We have a sticker and we bring our trash and we pay next to nothing all year. For me, I would be happy to pay $1,000 a year to prevent dumping. Like that's like kind of that, but that's me. And I know not everybody's like that. That's where I'm coming from as a community member. I would like to support a cleaner. I would ideally like the system to be that there's no individual cost for trash, because I feel like that's what contributes to a lot of the problems with pollution and stuff. But obviously that's down the line. But that's where I'm coming from, is kind of try to think holistically and on a large scale. And I don't expect that will mean that things will change for Putney this year necessarily. I just wanted to bring up these issues, and I'm happy to talk with you, Karen, more, and to talk with Dan Toomey.
And Dan and Bob Spencer is incredibly well informed about this as well. I mean, they're people. Well, Dan is a volunteer for us, but Bob Spencer is the guy. What you're talking about, Bara, is his life. He tries to think about how to best manage trash in Windham County and what the models are that work and don't work. So
Great. I'd love to talk to him.
I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you too. So
Okay. Sharon, I'll touch then.
Okay, thank you.
do you want to add anything, Karen?
No, I'm good.
You're good. All right. All right. Let's see. I see something. Oh, yeah. Karen just added, this came up, but in the chat, 200,000 per year for curbside in Westminster, and their population is pretty similar to ours. So my recollection is when we looked at it a couple years ago that it was going to be a little more than that, but that gives you a sense of the ballpark, somewhere in that range. All right. Let's see. Sorry, gotta bring this up.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Putney Historical Society Town Hall lease agreement. I don't think we really need to do this right now. It was sort of a miscommunication. I was hoping that Karen and I would really be able to sit down and go through this in the last couple of days, and I didn't have the opportunity to do that. But Lisa pointed out, emailed back and forth, and Lisa pointed out that we had already agreed that Karen and Lisa and I, as I knew, Lisa and I have talked about this a number of times. Just need to sit down and hammer out the details. So basically, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't getting lost. And Eileen, I think, Karen, you sent us the latest draft of the agreement. Is that right?
I sent it back, which I had made some of the corrections that Karen had pointed out earlier. Karen still has some questions about things, but I tried to correct at least those things that she pointed out. So I sent back another version, and I added something new because of discussions we've had at the Historical Society, again, about the 99-year thing. And
Right.
and until we sit down, Josh, I don't know how the town really feels about, terms and what are the pros and cons of, different ways of doing it. So you take a look. I think Karen can share it with Eileen.
I think I've seen.
I don't believe I've seen that yet. So
No.
whenever there's a draft, I can take a look at it.
Yeah. So if you can make sure, I think I've seen the newest one, but maybe not even. If you want to just make sure we all have it, Karen, and then Lisa and Karen. I can't do tomorrow, but next week, let's actually set up a meeting and go through it. And
No. Let's set a time right now. Do you have your calendar? You are slippery, man.
why?
There'll be witnesses too.
I can be flexible. How about Monday, the 7th?
I can do Monday. When do you want it? Should we do?
Anytime you can do it.
Karen, what's good for you Monday?
Let me just double check here. Monday. So anytime after, you like first thing in the morning, right, Josh?
Well, reasonably first thing. I often have to get something set up before. But yeah, I mean, what you get in 8:30ish, Karen?
Yeah. Yes. 8:30 is good for me because I have a 10:30. Lisa?
8:30 is fine.
Okay.
Are we meeting in person?
We can.
Can we just do 8:45 so that I know I have time to just Monday morning? So 8:45 on Monday?
Sure.
Sounds good.
In person or this way?
I think in person is fine. Do you want to do that, Lisa, or not?
It's fine with me.
Might be sort of easier, just so that
I think it might be easier.
Be on the same page.
Okay.
So at Town Hall at 8:45.
Sounds
good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All in favor?
Good evening.
David and or Eileen, if you have the opportunity before Monday morning to just read through it, and I don't know whether, can we send that, Karen, as a Google Doc maybe? I can't remember how it's set up, but if we had it as a Google Doc, what's that?
I haven't
I
seen
just,
it.
no, I just sent a Word version that I think is probably the best one to go off of, unless Karen wants to mark it up.
I'm just thinking if we did a Google Doc, then we can comment, which is helpful. I can probably convert it to a Google Doc if you can't, Karen, but.
I think I can figure it out because I've done Google Docs, so.
Are we allowed to do it that way?
Oh, that's a good question. If you're just commenting, yeah, that's a good question. I didn't think about that.
It becomes a
Sorry to
public
bring that up.
Yeah.
let's not do it that way.
A little bit
That's-
like,
So just keep it as the Word document. If you have comments, just email them to Karen,
okay.
Right.
please. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Lisa. All right. So I don't see any reason why we can't move things around and put Tom in now, right?
Yes.
Tom, unless you're just itching to hear all this other stuff before you do your thing. I'll take that as a no. So Tom, what do you got for us?
Well, you folks wanted a quick update on the whole COVID thing. Fortunately, obviously we're starting to see that the state and actually across the country, things are starting to return back to some sort of normalcy for us that we were used to pre-COVID. So at this point, there are just a couple of the biggies. As of the 14th of May, the governor made some significant changes specifically with regard to facial coverings and the requirements for those. As of the 14th, fully vaccinated individuals no longer are required to wear facial coverings. For individuals who are not fully vaccinated, if they're indoors and unable to social distance, they're still required to wear facial coverings. If they're outdoors and able to social distance, then they're not required to. Let me see here. As far as travel is concerned, there are no restrictions any longer, no quarantine requirements, no restrictions, except obviously for Canada. The Canadian border is still closed. Aside from that, those are the biggies.
Just so you know, Tom, and you may already know this, but we talked about it, I think it was at our last meeting, and we decided to leave our town resolution in place about mask wearing, which essentially does not mandate that people have to wear masks, but it allows businesses to make that choice. So I just want to reiterate that if businesses in town want you to wear a mask in their place of business, you have to wear a mask in their place of business. And that is that I think some of the business folks in town understandably don't want to have to police this. They don't want to have to be thinking about who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. So if they want to maintain a mask mandate to be in their place of business, that follows the guidelines of the governor that if you're unvaccinated, you would be masked, but they don't want to have to be asking. So we figured ours was structured in a way that it allowed businesses to basically do what they chose, and gave them the ability to say, hey, the town told me I could say no mask, no entry.
Right. And the governor still is very, very plain and straightforward about that. That municipalities and individual businesses still have the authority over themselves and whatever they choose to do. I know there are a number of municipalities who have, not only in Vermont, but also in New Hampshire and in Mass that I'm aware of, that have rescinded their rules. There are others that have not yet. So again, that's strictly being left up to each municipality and each individual business.
Yeah, I mean, what we talked about is, if, whenever it becomes that the governor really says all restrictions are lifted, which he's proposing by July 4th.
I'm assuming that on the 15th of this month, we're going to see some more pretty dramatic changes.
Yeah, no, I think.
Especially by then, it's the general feeling is Vermont will have hit that 80% vaccination mark, which the governor is pretty comfortable, will be very comfortable at that point. And I think we're going to see quite a bit more loosen up.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I think that also, we will, this is probably largely Karen's decision, but or Karen's recommendation, but our decision is when you want town hall to open up again. So I think we wait and listen to what the governor has to say on the 15th, and then sort of maybe based on that as to how we proceed. Any questions for Tom?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
It happens that I was watching the live stream of Governor Scott's press conference where he said what he was going to do when we reached 80%. He said, the day when we reach 80%, I will lift all remaining restrictions. And the news right now is that this may be upcoming sometime later this week. So I just thought I'd provide that since I was watching the live stream.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard some of the coverage of that, and I think they were saying that they were at 78,000 some odd. But then it's a question of whether the 2 weeks had elapsed for all those folks, or I don't know. There were some details, but yes, I agree with you. I think they were thinking that the number of people who had the shots would exceed 80% soon. I'm not sure what that means as far as his mandates are concerned. So we'll see. But thank you for adding that, Karen.
So I have a question for Tom. As first responders, Tom, if you go to a call and you have a COVID patient, have you relaxed some of your processes when you go? How are first responders dealing with?
No, we're still operating the same as we have been. If we have a suspected or a confirmed COVID case, then the way we function there with that is the same as it has been since last April.
So personal protective equipment.
We limit the number of providers interacting in full PPE and so on and so forth. Even though all of us at this point are vaccinated, we still aren't accepting that risk.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else have anything else for Chief Goddard? All right. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Good night.
All right, so that would move us on to paving bids, review and recommendation and approval. It appears to me we have 2 bids.
That is correct.
And do you want to run through them, Karen?
Sure. So in your packet, you have the spring paving project, which is in this fiscal year. And you also have 2022 summer paving projects, which consist of Priest Drive, East Putney Falls, and Houghton Brook. So we did receive 2 bids, Basin Brothers and Allstate Construction. Allstate's is out of New Hampshire. And so looking at the spring paving project.
It actually lists them as Massachusetts. But that may be.
Where are you seeing Massachusetts?
Right on the top of their things, it's Massachusetts. Yep. But it's a PO box. Maybe they're physically in. I don't know. Anyway,
They might have 2 different locations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It is called All States.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah, and the other thing with the All States construction, as you notice, they have Grafton, Vermont, and not Putney, Vermont, but that's okay. Anyways,
As long as Grafton doesn't get our blacktop.
yeah, no kidding. So All States was at the bid opening. Basin was not. So given what we have in front of us, and speaking with Brian, and we can call Brian if we need him. So Brian's comments were quantities are just estimates. So it can be like short or high. And then the what's most important is the price. Okay, so the unit price, whether it's ton or square yards. Okay, so given spring paving project for Hickory Ridge Road, Basin Brothers came in at $102,255. All States Construction came in at $100,797. Now the difference between the two bids for estimated tons is 45 tons and the square yards is 272 square yards.
Sorry, Karen, I'm scrolling through this. I don't have them side by side in front of me. So
There was that, do you have the Excel spreadsheet that Karen did?
that was
That
in.
spells it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Question, have we worked with both these pavers before? I know we've worked with Basins before, right?
Yes.
We've definitely worked with Basins. I'm not 100% sure we've actually worked with them on paving specifically, but we have definitely had them do projects in town before.
So the first thing I see right off is that the bids are very similar. And because they're both estimates, it seems if this was a private job and I was trying to pick a bid, experience with the paver would weigh heavy on my choice. That I know I'd be getting a good job if they're so close. So I didn't know if we had any information on that.
Yeah. So Karen, the price per ton is, did you get that by, was that a price that I'm not seeing? I don't have both of these. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have it here. So basically Basin is estimating a higher amount of material from the get-go. Do we have any experience like how accurate they tend to be when they finally put it down?
Pretty accurate. I mean,
Right.
it can, it's strictly anecdotal, but I would say, maybe 5 to 10% discrepancy, but not more than that. I wouldn't think. I don't have that spreadsheet, I don't think. So is that in our packet? Because I'm not.
It got sent later in the day.
Okay.
So my experience is that, and this is just my experience, is that usually people that estimate more quantity do that and come out closer to what they're actually going to need because they're not shaving the bid. But that's
Right.
just so.
Yeah, they're already adding 10 to 15% onto their bid, and it's more accurate. Yeah.
So, and these are only like what, $1,500 apart?
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, it's really close.
So what does Brian have to say? What's his opinion on these two bids?
So for the spring paving project, his recommendation is Basin. Again, he looks at the price per ton. So Basin's at $74 per ton. All States is at $75.90 per ton. And they have more quantity.
Right.
So, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to use it all, but they'll have enough. The other thing too is with all states, if they're short, which I should have looked at this bid to make sure. You know, if they're short, does that mean they're going to put more down and we pay more money?
These are just estimates, right?
They are just estimates. That's the whole thing.
Right.
But I would think they're both, close because that's what they do. This is,
Right.
these companies do this for a living.
Yeah, well, and the fact that, as David pointed out, they're very similar. I mean, if we had one bid for 160,000 and one for 100, it would be a different story. But
so the other important thing about this spring project, I'll let the board know that this work has to be done before June 30th. So there is a very short timeline here. And
Right.
Brian has checked with Basin and they can start the week of the 14th. And I asked Brian, I said, how many days do you think it would take? And he was like, oh, maybe
How many days it
3.
rains?
Huh?
That's how many days it rains.
Right. And that's, weather permitting too is the other thing. So, given that he was saying 3 days, it might be 5 days, but depending on weather, but it seems like they can do it in the time frame we're looking for. Now, Allstates was at the meeting and I asked him how his schedule was. I'm like, can you meet our deadline of June 30th? And he's like, well, I'm gonna have to move some projects around. He does have a project in Marlboro, Vermont, and he could tag ours, with that one. But
well, I mean, I also think there's the basic reality of keeping the money local is not a bad idea. I mean, we know Basin Brothers' reputation. We know they're good. I think David's right in saying they're going to treat us well because they're close by. And I don't say any of that to disparage Allstates because I don't know them. And I'm guessing they would do a very good job for us as well. But Basin is more of a known entity for us, and the prices are almost the same. And the bidding, as David said, this is based on a higher number of yards. So the cost difference is, in fact, I think the cost comes out a little bit lower. Well, yeah, it's a little lower per yard with Basin.
right.
So I certainly wouldn't. I'd be happy to entertain a motion to accept Brian Harlow's recommendation to go with Basin Brothers for the spring paving project.
So moved.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept Brian Harlow's recommendation to contract with Basin Brothers Construction to do the spring paving project, and to authorize Karen. I'll add in to authorize Karen to follow through with that contract. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Good, thank you. So summer, same recommendation?
Same recommendation for the summer. Brian recommends Basin for the same reasons. And so the price per ton is what we pay attention to. And so Basin was low with the shim overlay and base coat at $76 per ton, whereas Allstates Construction's at $83.90. And there is a difference of 195 tons between the two bids. Basin has more in their estimate. And this work doesn't need to be finished until October 1st, I believe it was.
So question, this is an estimate, and if they come in and the job is done and it's taken less tonnage, we pay less than the estimate. It's not the estimate,
Correct.
We pay what it actually takes, correct?
Right.
Okay, great.
So I had a question about, I don't know I don't know about the other roads, but I did have an opportunity to go up Priest Drive in the spring. And it's really steep.
Yeah.
And I can see where water runoff would be a major issue there, not only for that particular road, but also for River Road, washing into it. Is this project taking into consideration any of that?
Yes.
Okay.
So in the invitation to bid for Priest Drive specifications, there will be a 400-foot of paved swale, 4 feet wide.
Okay. Does that direct the water off of River Road too? 'Cause, I mean, it's just like a straight shot. It just goes straight downhill.
Right, there's going to be some drainage in there too.
Okay.
Brian talked about that. I don't have all the details, Eileen, but
Yeah.
given the history of Priest Drive,
Mhm.
we will make sure
To
that
do the best we can. I mean,
Right. No, it's one of those roads that if I had to do over, I would have not necessarily said we should put a road there. But
No.
it's there now, so
There
it's a
are
very
inherent problems
challenging
with that hill.
situation, and when it was done before, it was all engineered, et cetera. It was redesigned when it was paved the first time, or repaved, I guess. The last time, it's a really challenging situation. I mean, it's a long, steep hill that dumps right down into that really steep part right there.
Yep.
With, if you're going up, the left-hand side is a tall bank. It's
Yep.
just, it's a tricky spot. So, I mean, I think that I know Brian is giving it a lot of consideration, and I know that we will do the best we can, but I also know that water flows downhill, and that's where it's going to end up. So, it's a tricky one, but yeah.
So the driveway aprons also are gonna be paved. So somehow he's already thought it through, whether there's, drainage there or somehow like not a cutout,
A
but
little bit of a swale.
yes.
All right. So did I hear a motion to accept Brian Harlow's recommendation?
I'll make
I'm sorry, for the summer part of this as well. Yes. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept Brian Harlow's recommendation for the summer project of we're going with Basin, right? Of Basin construction.
Can you put the cost in there too, please?
This is for the shoot, I don't know which one.
$113,240.
For $113,240.
There you go. Thank you.
So
And I'll second that.
it's been moved and seconded to accept Brian Harlow's recommendation to go with Basin Brothers for the summer paving project in the amount of $113,244. $240. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you for working on those bids, Karen, and thank you, Brian, for looking at them and paying attention. And thank you to all states and basins for submitting bids. Much appreciated.
Josh, you have a comment in the chat?
I saw that. Yeah, Vanessa has commented, and it's not for Tom this time, but that you can, there's through UMass Amherst, you can get you can get DNA testing of ticks. If you get bitten by a tick, you take the tick off and you keep it and you send it to them. And they can determine exactly what diseases that tick might be able to transmit. It doesn't tell you whether you were infected or not, but it tells you what that tick had. And there is a discount for municipalities who signed up for it. I talked with Tom about this either last year or the year before, and my recollection, he wasn't familiar, but I think he was going to follow up. So I will check in with him, and or Karen, if you want to check in with him
Sure.
on. And we'll, but yes, Vanessa, thank you for that reminder. We'll try and get ourselves signed up for it. Okay, so next item on our agenda is the pool status and schedule for repair and opening. So Karen.
Totally lost the agenda.
What do I have? So I was thinking that we'd make the announcement that we hired a contractor.
Yep.
Rick Pettit, who has already started to order all the materials to repair the pool. And he was thinking if he can get in there with good weather, there's a potential that the pool could be done as early as June 15th or as late as June 24th. So I think that is all great news that we have somebody that will be working on the pool. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we're at like $69,753.06 for
Way to
pool
go,
light.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know where the 6 cents came from, but that's okay. Anyways, so that's where we're at with that. We're still going after grants too. Again, we missed some deadlines, but we'll see what we can do.
And just so people know, the amount of the contract that we signed with Rick was $35,000 something.
$125.
And so it seems like we have a whole lot of money in a pool fund that that we aren't. And the reason we came up with the number we came up with when we started fundraising for the pool was because we hadn't heard from Rick, and we had gone out to a couple others, and the low number previously was really rehabbing the pool in a very different way. It turns out that Rick's father did the work on this pool originally, and so he's very familiar with the pool, and he's very familiar with this method of construction of pools, and so he's sort of a specialist in this. And that allowed him, or it allows us to benefit from the fact that he knows how to really repair it and repair it properly. And that's going to save us a bunch of money. The money that will remain from that pool fundraiser will all go into the pool as well. Not the pool itself necessarily, as much as working on the pool building, shifting, hopefully adding some maybe water, what do they call them? Water elements.
Water features.
Yeah.
Water features, there you go. We had the conversation, and it's Rick's recommendation, and I think he's probably right that a slide is not necessarily a great idea because there's a lot of risk factors involved. But we're going to explore other possibilities, and then we're also just going to do all the upgrades around the pool that need to be done anyway. And so we will be spending the money raised for the pool fund on the pool, and if there's any excess, even in addition to that, it will go to funding work on the pool in the future, I believe, right, Karen?
Yes, that is correct. One other thing too, we're looking for lifeguards. So if anyone out there has young kids, they have to be 16, I believe, to lifeguard, but we need some, volunteers, and they're paid hourly, and
They'd have to be certified in.
they do need to be certified, yes.
Is there area? I mean, is there a place, or is there a local place to get certified? Is it?
They just had a class last weekend with Beverly Wright, who is our pool manager.
Okay.
Yeah. The other question too is because certification is not cheap. And there was a question whether or not the town would be willing to pay for certifications. At the moment, because we haven't really tapped into the pool budget, we do have money if a class were to be run in June that we could consider funding certifications.
And when you say it's not cheap, what does that mean?
So like renewals are like $275, and these are kids that are, wanting to be lifeguards, and they're
Right.
paying, that's an outrageous amount of money. And I think it goes up to like $325. So
Wow.
it's not, it's expensive. And, it's kind of a turnoff for these kids, but I think we might be able to do something if we can get people that want to be a lifeguard.
And the money that we have in the budget for the pool is because it hasn't been open, and we appropriated money to pay for lifeguards and for maintenance and stuff that we haven't done.
That's
So-
correct.
And so, all right,
There's $33,000 roughly in that budget.
okay.
I mean, I guess my feeling about that, Karen, would be that, I mean, of course, circumstances change, so we couldn't, I don't know how we would do this, but I guess my feeling would be that we would be willing to, or I think a reasonable way to approach that might be that if somebody was willing to take the course and work for us for X period of time, whether that's a month or 2 months or whatever it is, we would be willing to refund that cost. But I don't think,
Right.
I wouldn't feel comfortable handing out $325 to somebody to get a certification, and then it turns out that they aren't going to work for us.
They
So
go work at Brattleboro or something.
And I agree with
exactly.
you.
So I'm not sure how we could structure that to
Right.
work, but I think, or we reimburse a portion of it or something like that.
Yeah, I talked to Beverly about that because I let her know too. I said, if you get lifeguards for Putney, and if we were to reimburse for the class, I said they would have to be committed to the Putney pool.
I mean,
Right.
maybe we'd offer to make a certain amount of reimbursement per week that they work or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, it
We
could
can
be,
work it
they
out.
get paid anyway, right? It could be part of their paycheck.
Exactly. An additional, we'll pay you for an additional 2 hours a week that goes, something, however
There-
that would go.
There may be people though
Yeah.
that can't, bring that money up front though. Maybe there's some way for us to be flexible on that.
Figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think we would want reasonable assurance that we were going to actually get an employee out
Right,
of it,
that makes sense.
underrate it.
So the other thing too is it's something we need to consider, moving forward too.
Yes.
I know Bev had like 12 lifeguards 2
Yeah.
years ago. Of course, with COVID, they went to other pools.
Right.
And, some towns do pay for their certifications. So it's something I'm going to look into and see if it's feasible, but I'll bring it back to the board.
That's good.
So just to be clear, we don't have any lifeguards lined up right now.
We have 2.
You have 2, okay. And how does it usually get scheduled? They work for a certain period of time a day, for a certain number of hours a day, and then they rotate through?
Right. Well, here's the thing too with the pool. So it depends on how many kids are in the pool. That dictates how many lifeguards you have to have on deck.
And I think you have to have a minimum of 2 at all times anyway, don't you?
Right.
Yeah.
So the other thing too is like, I spoke to Rick Pettit, the pool contractor, and Bethel has, because they have a hard time getting lifeguards, so they limit the pool to so many kids, and then they just rotate, so they might be in the pool for an hour, and then the next group of kids come in, so it might be something we might have to do. I hope not. We're working really hard to like get this pool open, and hopefully we can have 80 kids in there with like 6 guards on deck,
Well, it's a good segue into a question that Michelle Alexoff put in the chat of, will there be any restrictions on the pool COVID related? And my answer to that, and I don't know that this is accurate at this time, but my answer is that we will base that on the governor's recommendations, and the Vermont State Department of Health will guide us through that. So it is, if it's necessary or mandated, then yes, definitely. If
Right.
it's not necessary or mandated, then we'd have to consider it. But I think we would like to be as quote unquote liberal with our pool as we can, just to be as inclusive to as many people as we're able to. But certainly if there were state guidelines or health department guidelines, we would absolutely adhere to them. So, but if we're limited in lifeguards, that might limit our numbers in the pool also. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Fairman.
noting that the lifeguards will be paid and therefore are town employees, I'm going to ask a question which is checking for precedent. Other town employees on occasion are required to undergo training for various certifications. Do we pay for their training?
Yes.
Then we have a precedent for paying for the lifeguards training.
Yeah.
Especially as these are young people who do not necessarily have $200 or $300 sitting around waiting to be spent. There's a question of fairness here. You all have referred to someone who is trained by Putney and decides to go somewhere else. But of course, it is also true that someone who is trained by another town decides to go to Putney. So I'm guessing that would be a wash. And the key question is, if other employees of the town of Putney are paid for their training, so they're not out of pocket, so should the lifeguards.
I agree with you, with one sort of notable exception in my mind, is that this particular type of training is required to be completed before they can start doing the work that we're hiring them to do. That I don't believe is the case with anybody else whose training we pay for. The fire department, for example, I mean, we pay for firefighter training, but those people are members of the fire department during the time which they are getting their training. So they're putting work in at the same time. And I'm not disagreeing with you, Mr. Fairman. I just want to highlight that fact that I'm not aware, well, the only exception to that might be a CDL for the highway department, but that's not even necessarily a requirement depending on somebody coming in. So it's the only one I can think of where we require a certification before we hire them. But yes, your point is well taken, and I think we should. And from like you say, we come out. It might turn out to be a wash. From an altruistic approach, training more people to be lifeguards is good, and we should participate in that. So, however we can do that, but also try and be as fair in the process as we can, I think we will have to consider.
Yeah, it'd be nice to share lifeguards with other towns. Like Vernon has a pool, Brattleboro.
Does Westminster? Westminster doesn't, do they?
No. But
Is Beverly
Saxon's River has a swimming area. Does Saxon's River have lifeguards at their rec area? They must.
Well, they have a pool.
They don't have a pool. They have a pond.
They have the pool-like pond.
I'm guessing they have lifeguards there, don't they?
I feel like I've seen lifeguards there.
Yeah, I feel like I have too.
They do.
Karen, in your discussions with Beverly, is she a resource where she could be a connective tissue for lifeguards for other towns?
yes.
Great.
Yeah, I'm sure she's well connected in the pool world around here, so I'm sure she pays attention to that.
We're going to have a meeting too. So we're trying to arrange a meeting with Alyssa and I and Beverly and Ruby to get updated. So I'll keep you posted on what happens.
All right, sounds good. If there's nothing further on the status of the pool, then internal control and financial management procedures manual, discussion and approval. I have to say, I feel like this is a little out of, I've read through it and I don't know whether it all sounds just right or not, because I just don't know. But I think you said, Karen, that this had mostly come through VLCT, correct?
That is correct.
And this
And
is not, this isn't something that you've had in place before?
No, and it's something that our auditor has asked us to do for
Yeah.
quite a while. And I'm comfortable with this. I read through it. Alyssa and I pretty much worked on it together. I also compared it to Wyndham Regional Commission. They're a little bit different than we are, but they had the same, template, basically, with just a few other different, things that they do that we wouldn't. So this can be amended at any time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think it's from my standpoint, it's it's at least a good starting point, and it's definitely something that we should have in place.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with it as it stands, and like you said, we can amend it if things aren't working out the way that you intended them to, or the auditor comes back and says you need to change whatever.
correct.
We can do
Right.
that at that point. But I think this is a good starting point.
Alyssa.
Oh, am I unmuted? I want to just point out too that this is basically the way that we operate already.
Right.
So just putting it down on paper and saying,
Yeah.
these are the rules and this is how we're going to do things, just for people. If somebody was to come in and replace both Karen and I, they'd be like, how did they do that?
Right.
Right.
I know.
And I think that the quality of our audits over the years would back up that statement. I mean, I think that yes, do we have to make tweaks here and there on our audits? Yeah, but for the most part, we do well with our audits, with the exception of a glitch here and there, and that's part of the learning process and part of the adaptation to. I mean, it's an ever-changing target, so. But no, I agree with you. I think this is clearly how we do it. So yeah, David.
Last week, when you brought this to us the first time, you said there was a couple things you wanted to tweak, and I didn't know if those were things that we need to know about, or we should just approve this.
No, so we talked about on page 6 under procurement guidelines.
Oh,
I
right.
had in there $2,500 and we
Right.
increased it to 5,000.
Right.
The other thing too is, I was thinking maybe we should change it to be a policy, but that's not correct. It's an actual manual. It's an operating manual that we use internally for our financial management procedures. And like Alyssa said, if her and I were gone and somebody had to step into our role, this is it right here.
This is the outline. Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
I'm comfortable with it.
I'm good. Yeah.
Great.
So is there a motion to adopt the Town of
Yeah.
Putney Internal Control and Financial Management Procedures Manual?
Yes, so moved. Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the Town of Putney Internal Control and Financial Management Procedures Manual. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you. And thank you, Karen and Alyssa, for putting the work into having this. I definitely agree with Alyssa that this is how we do things, and so it's good to have that established. So
Thank you for doing things that way so that this is simple.
yeah.
So David, when I need you, I'm going to call you.
Yeah, no, if this was all news to you guys, we'd have bigger issues, I have to say.
Right. So there is a declaration that needs to be signed by all three. So we'll go ahead and do that with electronic signatures.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think that's all we have on our agenda, so that would move it to you, Karen.
Okay, so quickly, social media platform notice. I spoke to David today earlier when he stopped in. I know we've discussed and thrown around the idea about social media platforms, namely Facebook. And whether or not the town should have a Facebook page. Alyssa and I sat down together and we discussed it, and we do hear the public. We do see a lot of people on I Love Putney. We did go ahead and we created a Town of Putney Facebook page. I will say right now, it is new. We both agree that we're not going to spend a lot of time. And this particular Town of Putney, Vermont Facebook page is strictly for town business.
Mm-hmm.
No one is able to comment on any of our posts.
Good.
And right now, what we're posting is meetings. So select board meetings, planning commission, development review board. You know, any of the committee and board meetings can be posted on Facebook. Any general information, like we need lifeguards, we put that out there. You know, the certification was on there, it was linked to the Brattleboro Reformer. You know, the military are doing training right now in the skies. You might have heard them today. That is on there because we get many phone calls saying, what's going on? Why are they doing these flybys? Why are they so low? What's, you know, they're scaring our cows. Well, that kind of information we're going to be posting, but it's all new. I think eventually it'll, you know, grow. But I wanted to let the board know that I have done that. We do have the Town of Putney Facebook page.
David.
Karen and I talked earlier, and it's very different than one we looked at from Brattleboro, where theirs is interactive in a way that Karen is not wanting to be interactive. And I know that you had crafted a statement, some kind of disclaimer at the beginning of it that, you know, let people know that it is not the same, because people use Facebook in a way that we're not hoping they will use this Facebook page. And well, that's important to get that message out there.
So I'm not familiar enough to know, Karen, you can have that Facebook page, but you can disable the ability for people to comment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I would just say, yeah, I mean, I think using it as a tool to get information out there sounds great. But there should be no, and you know, this is sort of needless to say, but there should be no sort of editorializing of that. That should not be any opinions or anything like that from us or from our employees or anybody else. It should just be factual information being made available to people. And I think you're right. I mean, you know, maybe we grow it over time, but no, I definitely don't feel that you or anybody else in that office should be spending your time responding to people over Facebook. And I don't think you even, I'm in favor of having it to get information out, but I am not in favor of you or anybody else having to listen to comments made by folks who don't, who feel they can make a comment without any repercussions. So I would advise us never to enable the response portion of it.
So, so people are able to share, though, that they can share posts from that page to other pages.
That is correct.
Okay. So, so people would be able to comment at that point, obviously. So
that's fine.
Always have that. There'll always be that possibility.
Yep. But
I mean, it's a good tool. You know, Facebook is it's a good tool for that kind of thing. So lots of events, lots of things like that. Sometimes those are the only places you can find it. And you know, for what it's worth, the Town of Brattleboro's page is a place that, you know, they put their town updates there. They put all of that stuff out there, and it's fairly accessible. And I actually didn't know it was interactive, but
it is.
So I guess I wasn't going through the comments. I was just looking at the updates.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great vehicle, and I think that's great that you're doing it. And I think we should you know, if we're going to have it, you should try it. I mean, I'm guessing it's relatively easy to keep it relatively current. But if we are going to use it as a mechanism, then we need to, you know, if we're going to start posting things there, then we need to be regular about that and pay attention to it. But no, and I hear what you're saying, Eileen, about others being able to comment once it's been forwarded, or shared. But that's fine. People can talk about whatever they want as long as we don't have to interact with it in a way that opens us up to complicated interaction.
Right. So on that note, would it be okay to share those posts to the I Love Putney site? Because that is one of the central groups in Putney.
But I Love Putney is not, you mean for us to share it to them?
Well, no, maybe just, it's an extra step, but it's would be a way to publicize the page.
No, we're not doing that. If people
Okay.
need to come to our page, and if
Yep.
they want to share, you know, it to like I Love Putney, but
Yeah.
we've
You're
already,
not doing that.
Melissa and we don't
Yeah.
have time.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, Putney Cares, you know, it's like, we're not going to pull everything. This is strictly town business.
No, I was just thinking also just for maybe a one-time thing, just to publicize it, because and then people can like it and follow it if they want to. But
Right.
if nobody knows that it's there, it's not as useful.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why we're talking about it tonight. So Michelle has a comment too. What we've done too is if people have questions or comments, they can contact us at the office, you know, either by telephone or by email.
Right.
The town clerk's office and the lister's office all have authority to post. And what happens, the posts go through Alyssa and I. So we're kind of like screening those too, but John has a lot of valuable information too coming out of the town clerk's office. And so do the listers at this time.
Right.
You know? So I think we're going to all work together. And it's like the fire department has their own website, you know, but we're not going to interact and, you know, put their stuff. So this Facebook page is coming out of the town hall.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's true. The library has one too. So this
Correct.
is just another, yeah.
Correct.
Earlier we talked, Karen, and you were saying that the same mechanisms that have always been set up are set up for people. And if they see something on the Facebook page and they have a question, they can call the town hall, they can call John, they can do whatever.
Right.
It's not that we're going to use the Facebook for that kind of communication.
Correct.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I would like to note that while it's nice to have a Facebook page, all public information posted on the Facebook page should be exactly synchronized with the information on the website. Because the website is public, but Facebook is actually not public. It is operated by a private corporation, I should say by a public corporation, publicly traded corporation. And in order to have full access, they require that you become a member of Facebook, which not everyone wishes to do. So while it's good to have it, it's important that the exact same information be posted simultaneously to the website so that those who wish to avail themselves of the website receive exactly the same information.
Yeah, so there's more on our website, Mr. Fairman, right at the moment, only because that was created, you know, for the purpose of communicating. And that is our preferred communication tool. Again, this is new, but anything that we post, like meetings, definitely go on our website.
Yeah, no, and I think to Mr. Fairman's point, and thank you for bringing that up. I think that if there's more on the website, that's great. If there's more on Facebook, that's a problem for us,
Right.
based on the point being made. So yeah, no, I just think I would agree, simultaneous, and that would be a good, if we're using it as a vehicle for that, that would be a good habit to just, whenever it is that gets updated, they just both get updated,
Right.
So,
Right.
that's good. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So what did Michelle have to say?
Michelle was bringing up the point about, I think we covered this.
Yeah, I think we did.
Okay.
Just that people
Right.
keep going back down to.
You're saying
I mean,
Just
essentially,
post
it's
it.
what we were just saying about
Right.
things. If questions come up on Facebook, you won't have the ability to ask those questions on Facebook, but all the other routes to communication with Town Hall remain the same. So.
Right. Okay. You're welcome, Michelle. So my other item I had on here is advisory committees call for assistance. So it is out there for the Economic Development Advisory Committee and the Agricultural Advisory Committee. It's on our Facebook page. It's on iPutney. And I want to say we put it on the website, but I'll have to confirm that with Alyssa. And we do need 5 people for each advisory committee. And with the Planning Commission starting to update the town plan, these 2 committees are critical. And so it's a call for volunteers. And I'm going to keep doing it. We need people.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you want to add to that, Eileen? Because I know you're on the Planning Commission, so no.
I mean, I am on the Planning Commission. I'm also on the Energy Committee, and I'm also on the Select Board. And there's only so many hours in the day. So if anybody would like to take over one of those spaces, I would not be unhappy.
Lots of opportunities.
That's
Yes.
right. That's all I have.
thank you for your service.
All right, other business discussion, equity and inclusion. We were not able to meet this week because of scheduling stuff, so we will be meeting next. I don't have it right in front of me. I believe we're going to be meeting next Wednesday from 5:30 to 7. So Karen, I will, once I have confirmation on that and
Sure.
the agenda, I will update you. But we had a good meeting last week. And really sort of clarified, did a little actual kind of wordsmithing on the charge that had been, there was a charge that I don't remember having seen before, but had been moving through the Equity and Inclusion Committee previously. And so we sort of wordsmithed that and tuned it up a little bit to be what we felt was most current. And last I knew, that was going to be sent out for us to look at. And actually, I'm not sure whether I've received a copy of that, but once we have a completed copy, we will be sharing that with the select board, hopefully to move forward on an approval of a charge. And really, we just went back to very much the sort of the boundaries that were established in the resolution as to how it should be managed and what aspects were important to be covered. So it was a lot about sort of procedure and policy, et cetera, and just tried to clarify those, and then tried to make some allowance for steps going forward. If there are appropriate steps to go forward beyond that, how would those be arrived at? So once we have a completed document, we'll share that with everybody. But it's already a public document, so it's in our presumably in our minutes. I don't remember seeing it, but we're working on it. So it's good, and it was a good meeting. I think we had, there was a lot of agreement on the reasons we wanted to do what we wanted to do and why it should be in the charge and so on and so forth. So that was good. And Michelle, since she's here, I'll just comment. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle has been taking notes for us and doing our minutes, and also has been participating in conversation. That's been very helpful. So thank you for that. Other than that, any other business that anybody would like to bring up? Karen?
Yes, I'd like to bring up something. I see Mary is online with us tonight. We have a new kiosk down at Sand Hill.
Oh, that.
Yes. So they're progressing. They're going to be they're looking at fence posts to put up in the back parking lot so people do not dump stuff back there. I also want to ask the select board, you know that the pile of sand and tree stumps are still in that area down at the parking lot. How do you want to proceed with that? We can't put the fence posts up until we remove that mess that was dumped down there.
Is it in, I haven't checked it out. Is it in the wetland?
It's in the area. Yeah, nothing can be dumped down there. We need to, we can't leave it there. It's an eyesore for one thing.
No, I was wondering if it would benefit from being burned, since you said that there was a bunch of invasives in there, but I wouldn't want to set anything else on fire, depending on where it was.
I think
Can I add to it?
Go ahead, Mary.
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
Actually, the entire parking lot is in the wetland.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. I mean, Sand Hill is also in the wetland, so I just meant within the brush.
We can't burn it because most of it's dirt.
Yeah, it's mostly dirt. So, yeah, David.
David, yeah.
We have to backhaul to the gravel pit in Dummerston, don't we? Are we required to backhaul a certain amount every time we take something out of there?
Yes.
Not every time we take something out, but we have the opportunity to backhaul as we choose. So,
right.
I mean, unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of what we take there, I mean, just looking at the cleanup along Hickory Ridge Road that they've been doing in preparation for pavement, no doubt, I assume that's going to the pit, and there are inevitably invasives in there. So, so I would say, unless is there any reason you can't ask the highway department to do it, Karen? I mean, I hate to ask them to do extra work because somebody was inconsiderate enough to dump stuff there, but
well,
sort of the only method we have.
I don't mind asking. What I'd like to do is coordinate with the Wilson Wetlands when they have their fence posts ready to go in the ground.
Yep.
Then I will ask Brian to send a crew down there to clean it up. And then knowing that the fence posts are going to go in, and hopefully there won't be any more dumping over there. Mary, we talked about a no dumping sign over there as well. Is that correct?
Yes, we were going to attach to the post. You were going to ask Brian if he had one?
Yep. We're going to order some anyway, because there's other places in town that we need no dumping signs. But yeah, I want to keep this moving forward, but we definitely got to clean it up.
We should consider, Karen, and I know we have this same discussion in a variety of arenas, but enforcement is an issue. But I do think we should consider posting no dumping and a fine. You may already be considering that, but you know, we should find out. I don't remember whether we have that in. I mean, do we have like the ability to do that? I don't know. We would probably have to create an ordinance if we don't have one, but there might also be state guidelines for it. We might by default statutorily have the opportunity to do that. So I just think, you know, it's not going to make those people who are going to dump to a certain extent, are going to dump anyway. But, seeing a number of there on, I think of on right up by Pine Banks, there's the pull off on Route 5, and it says no dumping subject to a $500 fine or something. I'm guessing that gets some people's attention. So might be worth what we could put on there and putting that on.
Well, the thing too is, I think if you're dumping in a wetland, I don't know what the fine would be.
Yeah, that's probably already a state.
Yes.
Right.
That would be a question for A&R then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mary, I also just want to comment that you appear to have some beavers active, and you must be happy about that, but it makes your job a little harder.
Well, actually, it doesn't make our job harder at all because it's making the pond look nice, but the pond the water will they can only make it go up so far because it has to have height on either end of, in terms of what they can build onto. And there's nothing on the far end for them to make it go higher than it is right now.
Well, that's probably a good thing,
right.
Yeah. So
fire might turn into a problem for us.
Well, I mean, anywhere. I mean, if they really get working on the starter dam when it's really, I'm not even sure why they put the dam there. It's nice that they put the dam there, but I'm not sure why they.
It's not area to put a dam.
It's great, but the water is very low in the wetland right now. It's very low in the brook. Even though we just had 2 inches of rain, it's amazing. But if they start working on when it's dam building time, which is usually towards the end of the summer, the starter dam again, which we're hoping they will, it'll bring more water back in and slow the water down, really is what we want to do. The more water flows through there, the more it takes with it, and the lower it makes the bed of the brook, which isn't a good thing. So anyway, but that would actually make the water higher than what they put in as a dam. But it's nice. I do hear there's goslings there, although I haven't seen them yet. Howard Fairman, if you're still here, he sent me an email telling me that there's goslings there now. Nice. But
Thank you for your hard work, Mary.
we met with Evan. We don't know who we'll be talking about who else we can ask for estimate, Karen, because you suggested that we get 2 estimates. Okay.
Yeah,
But
if you can. I mean, yeah. And what you were talking about something else too, and I told you should have Evan give you 2 quotes.
Well, split rail fence, but the kind of posts that he has for split rail fencing right now are not really great posts. They're the ones with a round end on them instead of the 2 flat ends that go through that you can't really get them out of the. Jerry Heim just had one put up, and I went over there looking at his. It's very, very sturdy. So he is going to give us a quote on that anyway.
All right.
They're having a hard time getting lumber and stuff, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
What about the company right here in Putney on Route 5? Is it?
Companies?
Ed Martin, Wayside, you talking about Wayside fencing?
No, they're in Brattleboro, but that is Ed Martin.
Do you mean
Who's the guy in Putney right on Route 5?
You mean
Where?
past Putney Brook Falls? I mean Putney.
Before Harlow's, before the corner there.
Before Harlow?
Yeah.
He doesn't do fencing. He's a sawyer. That's Carl Mosier.
Okay.
He just mills material. He doesn't do fencing.
Oh, all right.
I don't know of anybody else. I mean, Jane, who's new on the committee, she was going to look into it.
Springfield Fence is semi-local and they do good work, but Ed, it'd be great if Ed can do it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we would like to give it to them. They live here.
Yeah.
Right.
And they do a lot for the town because, they're big fire, EMT, everything else.
Ed and I did our firefighter 1 training together. Way back when. And the town paid for it.
Remember that.
All right. Well, if there isn't any other business, then we do need to have a very brief executive session for the purpose of discussion of an employment issue. So that would be Title I VSA 313, I believe it is.
13A. Hold on a minute. I have it right here somewhere. Nope. Not at my fingertips, so sorry. Oh, right here. So Title I VSA 313A3.
Sounds good. Is there a motion?
A motion to enter executive session under Title I VSA 313A3.
I will second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to enter executive session, and I'd like to invite Karen to join us. And otherwise, there will be no decision made as a result of this. So BCTV Austin, Karen can just let you know our completion time, and we'll go from there. So moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
So we have exited executive session at 7:58 p.m. and we had a discussion about an employment issue, and there will be no decisions made as a result, no actions taken. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion
So
to adjourn.
moved. Oh, second.
It's too fast to even
He's
know. who
way
first
too
and
fast. I
second
can never get it.
Go ahead, you can do it all from now on. All yours.
So it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks, Eileen. See you, David.